Hello everybody. Thank you for being here today. Firstly, I want to congratulate everybody. I've been watching the presentations all week and they are fantastic. I am proud to be a part of this community and inspired by the work that I've seen. My name is Jay Zengabot. I'm thrilled today to be presenting my thesis to you all. It's called ComicDrop. ComicDrop is a browser-based place to quickly create comics using a shared library of artwork that everyone can contribute to. It starts from a super simple premise, right? If a middle school Charlotte wants to draw a submarine and a graduate student GJ draws a fish, how can software facilitate them working together on something like this or this? Before I get into a live demo, I want to talk a bit about the fires that forged this project. I would say things started seriously at the Rhode Island School of Design, where I studied printmaking and developed a profound appreciation for the process itself. After that, I spent the better part of the last 10 years teaching, mostly middle school students, two-dimensional art and design, and also working as a public artist with a team called Tape Art in Providence. We would work with green tape to create large-scale temporary murals on walls, and those would come down shortly thereafter. It was very ephemeral. The root of all that is a love for drawing that has been with me from the beginning. Drawing, to quote a middle school student of mine, is a tool I use to express how I feel inside. And after collecting 4 flat files full of drawings like this, the iPad came out. As I was working on the iPad and exploring its creative potential, a thought occurred. Here you have all of these disparate but interconnected devices. People are creating drawings on them. Why do we not have a drawing tool that could unify that body of work and allow everybody to use and contribute to it? I didn't have the skills to do this, though. I needed to go to a place, and ITP was the perfect place for a polyglot like me with a background in the arts to tackle the challenge of programming and understanding computers and protocols and web development. And so here are a couple of previous projects I worked on from ICM. Thanks Schiffman, Duck Pond, and then I want to also thank John Schimmel and the Dynamic Web Dev class for the skills I needed to develop this online. So through this, I like to believe I've learned a few things about process and workflow, about physical rhythm, from teaching about structure and effective lesson planning, and from the internet, right, these protocols we decide upon and the interfaces that we iterate through. I'm certainly not the only person thinking along these lines. There are some great examples like 2B, where you can collage the internet, Draw Your Professor, which has a really specific and wonderful focus, and also Ai Weiwei and Olafur Eliasson's Moon, 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 where artists are encouraged to leave their mark on a virtual moon. Another parallel would be Bitstrips. Bitstrips is a great program. For a lot of you, it might be the thing you are most familiar with regarding comics online. And Bitstrips is fantastic, but it definitely has a bent towards puppetry. It's less about drawing and more about manipulating what's already there. So I think about this online landscape as an array of lesson plans, and within that array, ComicDrop aims to break out the componentry of comics, giving people avenues to explore drawing, composition, narrative structure, and so forth. There are 3 central components to ComicDrop. The first and probably most important is this shared art library, drawings that everybody can add and everybody can use. Secondly is constraint. ComicDrop doesn't try to be everything, and by doing so, it frees people from the burden that can be choice or an overwhelming array of options. Lastly, there are multiple points of entry, so young people like myself with a proclivity to draw will find ComicDrop wonderful and welcoming, but people who are more inclined to write or are more inclined to explore narrative structure will find ComicDrop a worthwhile tool as well, and I hope that they will work together. So I'm going to hop into a live demo. I'm going to be working today directly from my small iPad and give you guys a quick rundown of some of ComicDrop's main features. There's more here that I won't get into, so I just wanted to double check and make sure that I am logged in. Here we have our main panel, and I'm going to draw a simple line. in the top right-hand corner, I can open up my sticker drawer and see some of the drawings that other people have contributed. I happen to like this baby, so I'm going to add the kid. And now you can see I can use my fingers and gestures to move this drawing around in the space. Mac, this one's for you. I'm going to go ahead and search for surf. And I'm going to add a surfboard in here. So here we go. I've got my surfboard. Now I can flip that, rotate it a bit, and put it underneath that kid. We've got a surfboard baby. So once I've got a panel that I'm happy with, I can quickly hit that checkbox on the right and save a snapshot. This would be akin to a lithographic state. And now if I open up the builder, the third icon on the bottom right, I'll be presented with some of my most recent panels. I can select that 3 to create a 3-panel comic. And then I'm going to actually not use the surfing baby. I'm going to pull in a couple of drawings I made during Thesis week. I'm going to tap that PNG button on the top right-hand corner. And this will export a PNG that then I can share online, send to my friends, you name it. So that's the live demo, but there's plenty more. There are requests. There will be social features built in, etc. All right. That would be a video in case that didn't work. So I want to talk a bit about a couple of the other most important aspects to ComicDrop. The first is that it's fast. While I was developing this, I realized that it was important for ComicDrop to give people a creative avenue that would fit into the margins of their day, right? We're all increasingly efficient, but also somehow increasingly strapped for time. And in just a matter of minutes, with a little bit of practice, I think people can make something worthwhile using ComicDrop that they would be excited to share. I also aimed for ComicDrop to work well for seasoned professionals who work with the Creative Suite, as well as with kids, because I think there's something to be said for the validation that young people feel when they see older people working with or adapting their work. And I also think that there's something to be gained by adults who look to young people for inspiration and the energy, the attitude, the wonderful joy that kids are often able to bring to a canvas or a work of art. To that end, I was fortunate to do some testing, both at Marymount and with Anne-Marie's lovely family. So most of the kids you see here are actually not native English speakers, and I was thrilled at first contact for this group of young ones to spend well over an hour engaged with ComicDrop. I developed this tool as something that I personally would like to use in the classroom, so this was a super encouraging result. To that end, I've designed ComicDrop to be visually oriented and to challenge its users to think about how they might express complicated ideas, not through the familiar words and letters, but through visual iconography and visual language. So it was important for me through the interface of ComicDrop to get people thinking along those lines. I've also built in print features, and there's more of this to come. I do want my users to explore the nebulous line between print and screen, and to give classroom teachers the ability to quickly export PDFs so that their students could print out and color on these ComicDrop panels. ComicDrop is web-based and tablet optimized, so you don't need to download any apps. I tried to lower the barrier of entry. Anybody with a web browser can simply point it to comicdrop.com, log in, and start playing with this stuff. I'm going to speak briefly about the development process. It's a wonderful time, right, to be building things on the web. And we have all of these amazing tools and libraries that enable somebody like myself, who wasn't doing this just a couple of years ago, to embody this super small feedback loop between development, design, testing, and iteration. The stack, so on the front end, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and on the back end, Node, Mongo, S3 buckets to save stuff, running on Heroku. Just an amazing set of tools that enable people to build stuff and quick. This tiny loop allowed me to be testing since February. So as soon as I had the most basic version of this, I could start getting feedback from some of my friends. This is the work that I want to actually compliment Andy, who pushed this really far and gave me a lot of fantastic feedback. And this tiny loop allowed the process of design and iteration to happen in a really short span of time. And also I focused not on exploding ComicDrop, but on sort of a slow burn. So here again are Emery's nieces and nephews, and to just work with a small group of 5 students allows me to really see where people are having the most trouble getting going with ComicDrop. I also used peak user testing extensively. For those of you who aren't in the know, you can go to peak.usertesting.com and you can get free 5-minute snippets of people visiting your website for the first time. This is incredible. You get perspectives that you otherwise wouldn't, and you can learn so much just from the cadence of their voice. You can understand how they're experiencing your project. And so here, a user has drawn me how they feel after some of their drawings weren't saved. And that feedback I found invaluable. So today, I'm thrilled to invite everyone to comicdrop.com. I'll encourage you to register and sign in for an account. That'll help you save your panels and share them or use all the available tools. My dad signed up the other day. I put this on Facebook as like a shout out, and he still hasn't contributed anything. So, Dad, if you're watching, I'm 100% interested and excited about conversations involving ComicDrop moving forward. So if anybody's interested, I invite everyone to email me at jz@comicdrop.com. But specifically, I'm excited to explore how ComicDrop might be utilized in museum educational contexts and also in art ed. When I started to dream up ComicDrop, I was less interested in comics than I was as like a creative space and as a panel. So personally, I'm thrilled at the prospect of building larger screened and touch-enabled versions of this so we can explore just composition in its own form. So the dream, right? Tech leveraging humanity. I wanted to build a tool that gave people the ability to do something that they couldn't have otherwise done, or certainly not so easily. So I didn't want to build tech for machines. I wanted to build tech for people. I wanted to celebrate visual diversity. So hopefully as this library grows, it's not just about the one balloon, it's about the 500 balloons that everybody can contribute and that plurality of voices that I hope to develop online. Everyday creative activity, an opportunity for people who consider themselves makers to hop online, create something worthwhile quick, but an opportunity for people who don't self-identify as artists or makers to also find that satisfaction. Lastly, I'll say that I hope that ComicDrop can aid in the creation of funny, wonderful, sad, strange, true, and triumphant stories. But the other day, Cerrito sent me this, and so maybe this is what ComicDrop is for instead. I want to thank everybody who's here today, and then specifically these people who are primary drivers in helping me get to today. So thank you all very much. And I guess it's time for questions. Carl.
Can you talk a little bit about your challenges in moderating some of the more explicit or unsavory content that may have landed in ComicDrop?
So the back-end structure is in place that essentially users will have other trusted entities. Those trusted entities, their artwork will be seen immediately. So if I say I trust that Carl's work is appropriate for my classroom, I'll see your drawings after you've done them. But if I don't trust you, if you're not like a safe entity, those drawings will get held in limbo until they can be approved by a moderator. I'll admit right now that the front-end structure is not in place for that, so I'll just kindly request that if you are visiting ComicDrop today, try to keep it school safe. Right? Those features are down the road, but under consideration. Anyone else? Hey, Tom.
Hey, I'm actually going to ask Susan's question. Did you consider any sort of kinesthetic or physical element, or did you get any pushback from kids about screen fatigue syndrome?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I am concerned with screen fatigue too, and I'm not interested in young people under 12 or 13 spending time. Like, I don't want to teach classes to kids that young because I'm not certain they ought to be spending time on pads. That said, they're spending the time online already, and I'd rather them be doing this than flittering away their time in violent video games. And right, that's the reality. Certainly a reality I confronted while I was teaching, and so competing for that time. Maybe I'll speak to the disconnect, right, that students feel between their time at home and their time at school, and they wanted to leave art class to play Grand Theft, and I wanted to build a tool that might help get them re-engaged, isn't so socially separated as a sketchpad often is. Patty. Hey, yeah.
Just when you showed the print stuff, there was color in there.
Yep.
I was wondering if that was sort of your view, like they would add color after they printed.
Right.
Or you, what was that?
Thanks for that question. I want to thank Cerrito also for some of that coloring action. He did a phenomenal job. So comics traditionally were created by a team of people. Somebody would do the pencils, somebody would do the lettering, somebody would do the ink, and somebody would do the color. And I wanted to bring a bit of that back into ComicDrop. And you'll find patterns like that throughout the history of printmaking. Ukiyo-e, Japanese woodblock printing, the great German etching prints that we revere. So right, it's about separating out these component parts and allowing people to focus on the task at hand, doing the best possible job drawing and composing, arranging these sequences, and then they can think about color. Oh, and that's actually a good segue, right? I don't intend for ComicDrop to be a replacement for sketchbooks or for drawing altogether. This is just a tool in a box of tools, but I think that ComicDrop does have something to add.